the Warriors roster is a final. For the final roster spot, free agent forward George Niang has agreed to a 1-year, $3.9 million deal with the Golden State Warriors. A career 40% three-point shooter who missed last season due to injury.
Oh, boy.
That's how we roll around these parts. But he is back, and it had been much rumored. It is now official. Niang joins the Warriors and grabs their last roster spot.
It sounds awesome. It kind of reminds me of doing the old school like auction fantasy baseball draft where you need 25 roster spots and you get down to the final 3 spots and you have $3 left of auction dollars. And so you kind of have to wait. You have to wait for everyone to, take the people who you can't afford, and you wind up in that spot and you get George Niang and Brandon Williams?
Brandon Williams earlier today. Yeah, first thing this morning, or you could argue even for some in the middle of the night or so. Free agent guard Brandon Williams from the Dallas Mavericks also joined the Warriors on a 1-year, $2.6 million deal earlier today.
Okay. And just looking at George Niang, he's 6'8", and his nicknames are the Minivan and G-Wagon. Oh. So that's fun.
I get where G-Wagon comes from. Why do you call him the Minivan?
I have no idea.
There's your first question.
Sure. I mean, we could do a big finish with him when we have him on. He was a Pacers, a Jazz for 4, 2 with the Sixers, 2 with the Cavs, then the Hawks. And so, yeah, journeyman, well-traveled.
Yep. No, these are not like overly exciting names, but they're NBA players. They're not, these are not G Leaguers or whatever. And so the Warriors never did make a splash this offseason, but they did bring in some credibility, I think, today. Brandon Williams averaged 13 points a game last year. Niang, as you said, was hurt, but at the same time, he's got a long career in the NBA and apparently multiple nicknames as well.
And I think that for Brandon, it was, a G League, and then he got a little cup of coffee, and then back to the G League. It's a little bit of fits and starts, and then last year, he actually got to play on a team that wasn't very good, and he played pretty well. So now you get to go out there and become a part of the Golden State Warriors. And the more I look at this year's roster, you've got your core of, 5 or 6 older guys, and then you've got the other core of maybe 4 or 5 younger guys like Will Richard and Pods and Gee and Yaxel. And so then you've got this other group of 4 or 5 of question marks.
Well, I was struck today, I'll mention it again, something that Kyle Shanahan said, because we're very excited to see Cut Down Day. And we get that roster this Sunday, you will know who made the team and who's getting kicked out to the practice squad, who's cut, all of that stuff for the 49ers. And that may all last one day.
Right,
So when someone says, I don't love where the Warrior roster is or what they did this offseason, the way I kind of look at it is, okay, but it may well be very incomplete. I do think that the Warriors got to a spot where they effectively got across the message that with all of the expiring deals, in the absence of the right deal being available this offseason, they decided that let's see what happens with the first half of the season. Let's see what the health of Jimmy Butler is. And then if it's good or if it's bad, we are in position to make the correct supportive deal at the deadline. All of those expiring deals are no longer expiring deals once they've already expired. So that means that their value it tanks a little bit after the trade deadline. And so here we are. This is the roster. And then I think whether they play well and want to sort of accentuate it or they play poorly and they want to blow it up, February is kind of the next spot where you could see a new Warrior direction.
Yeah, and most of the things that they've done of late are shorter term deals. And like Yaxel, you're going to go ahead and keep him. And so if Jimmy finds himself to be ready early and he looks good, well, then you keep him. And maybe if he's not quite as ready and he's got that big contract, maybe he's somebody you could move. And same thing with Kristaps Porzingis. And so I do think that their optionality has not really been changed based on these last 2 signings that, they fill up the roster. And like you're saying, you go into the year now where you've got Niang, who is somebody who can play 15 to 20 minutes a night. And, same thing with Williams. You could put him out there for even more. And Yaxel and Pods played every game last year. And Will, in year 2, you expect him to be able to play. So even if you have these guys who can't play back-to-backs, and Al Horford, probably not, and Kristaps Porzingis, you don't even really know, what his health will be. And Steph Curry with runner's knee, and Draymond Green's getting older, and Jimmy and Moses can't play. I do think that you've added at least NBA bodies, like you said.
There you go.
They're NBA players.
Exactly, which I think, to characterize 2026 so far, we've had 2 seasons of the really, really frontline teams here in the Bay, and both seasons have devolved into where we're just grabbing people from the minors. You know what I mean? Go look at the Giants box score yesterday. The most diehard fan won't know who half the people are.
And they dominated.
Right. They played well. Yes, they did. And the Warriors season last year at times became the same thing, where we had to all suddenly on the fly go, who's Malavi Leones? And who's, remember that Nate guy?
Omer Kurtsaven.
Yeah, there was a
Yurtseven, not
Kurtsaven.
Hey.
Nate Williams?
Yeah, Nate Williams.
Charles Bassey, who's back now this year.
Bassey, LJ Cryer.
Yurt from Hayward Hills. That I am.
Too. Anyway,
whatever.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It just, both seasons devolved into where you needed to put together a roster, and you're like, hey, how about that guy? Get that guy over here. Okay, hey, guy, you're in. And I don't think that this year's Warriors season, I'm not telling you that this is a great roster. It's not. But I think that, it's a little bit deeper on that front. Actual NBA players that can maybe hold the baton for a little bit if there's load management or injuries.
And people who have more of a track record, and, Pat Spencer became a fan favorite because he was a lacrosse superstar who turned out to be a real NBA player, and, he played great. It's yeah, Pat.
He was that mother jumper. Don't forget that.
He was, exactly. Yeah. But beyond that, you mentioned, Williams and, Yurtseven and all the Leons and all the rest of the guys where you needed people to actually be able to wear a uniform and run up and down and play basketball. So I do think that this, the second team now and the third team now, feels a little bit more real, a little bit more, I guess, authentic to an actual NBA roster.
It's a little bit of a, it's not a deep roster, but it's deeper than it was. That's how I'll say it for right now.
It's better deeper, I would say.
It's not a deep roster, but it's deeper than it was.
Right.
And it also has a young, exciting prospect on it, which I think from an emotional standpoint is a game changer. Absolute game changer.
It should be. And, beyond that, you have a lot of the same old guys coming back, and you would think that DeAnthony Melton should be healthier than last year where he was coming off the injury, and Al Horford will probably be the same, and now you get 82, not games played, but 82 games of Kristaps, and you would hope that the GOAT, Dr. Rick Celebrini, can get him to be able to play, 41 or 50, and
I'm
not trying to
aim higher than half the games.
I won't.
I hope Kristaps plays more than 41 games.
I'm just saying.
I'm not guaranteeing you he will.
But if you look at his recent track record, his recent track record of years has been 45, I think is about the average. And so, honestly, you always talk about this, under promise, over deliver.
Sure. Well, there's no promise at all.
Right.
I don't know if any of them are going to play any games.
Well, the promise is that you paid him, and you're hoping that he can play basketball.
Yep.
And so, will he play 82? Probably not. Will he play 0? Probably not. So in between the two, what are you really looking at realistically?
It went poorly if it's only 41. Then it went poorly if it's only 41.
Okay, I would say
that's the way I look at it.
It would go about according to form. And yes, you want more than that.
Yeah.
And when he plays, he is usually really, really good. But for me, the reality of his situation is to where I'm going to keep the bar very low.
I get, and that's fair. I guess my point is if 41 feels kind of like a par to you, then the Warriors shouldn't have brought him back. That should not be a par. That's bogey. That might even be a double bogey.
Well, I think that they probably would put the par at closer to 50.
If you didn't think that there was a reasonable chance for him to play 60 games, then he shouldn't be on the team. Remember when Joe Lacob was like, with each situation, we got to it where it was like, do we want Melton or do we want, Anthony Simons? And we're like, I think we want Melton. I guess my point is if you only think that Kristaps is going to play half the games, there had to be a better option out there. There had to be somebody else tall who, even though Kristaps is a better player, if he's going to play that much more, I would have taken the availability. So I say that not to be critical of anything because we don't know what's going to happen yet. But I would hope that the Warriors feel that if things go correctly and they're, if they're granted any luck at all, that Kristaps is capable of 60 games.
Or
I'm not asking for 75.
Right. And I think that the other side of it is you can play him, 30 of the first 45, and you can showcase how good he is, and you can trade him. And that's partly why I believe that they went out there and took the risk, because his contract is one that is very movable at that price if you want to go to the deadline. And if Jimmy is not a movable deal at that price and Draymond's somebody you don't want to move, well, Kristaps becomes the next movable number, my opinion.
No doubt. Yeah, that's fair. But again, who's going to want to acquire him if he's not playing, unless it's just somebody that wants to dump something? That's how the Warriors got Kristaps Porzingis.
Right. And he would be expiring, right? Because his deal next year is not fully guaranteed. It's mostly not guaranteed.
Yeah, I think it's got a $3 million kind of guarantee to it. So you can call that an expiring deal if you want, because you can get out of it for cheap. The Warriors have filled their final 2 roster spots today. These names had been rumored for a while. Mark Stein was tweeting about this 3 weeks ago. But it all came together today. Free agent guard Brandon Williams, who averaged 13 a game for the Mavericks last year. He signs a 1-year deal with the Warriors. And then just moments ago, the final piece breaks, and that is free agent forward George Niang. 1-year, $3.9 million deal. He was injured and missed last year, but he is a longtime veteran of the NBA, a little bit of a journeyman, career 40% three-point shooter, and has some height at about 6'8", 6'9". So can he go out there and stretch the floor a little bit? Yes, he can. So that's what the Warriors have done. Check this out. 510 says, I work with patience with Potts. He not playing more than half the games. And the thing I go to here is, we still don't even know if it is. I don't know what it is. And there was that whole uncomfortable thing when Steve came on the show last year and said that he was told that it was not Potts, and then he got in trouble for that, and then he didn't want to talk about it anymore. And I get that. Kristaps hasn't really defined it. I don't know if it's Potts. I don't know what it is. But if that's what the expectation is of somebody with that condition and he has it, to where you can automatically be, there's no way he's playing more than half the games. Well, then why is he on the team then? Why would they have brought him back? I feel like they've got to be more optimistic than that.
I think they're more optimistic, but also I do think that you look at his contract and it becomes something that is movable. And if you don't bring him back, then what did you end up getting for Kuminga and that whole thing? The whole deal that you made, it's kind of a Chris Paul all over again.
Yeah.
And you don't want that.
No, but there's no way around that. What did Atlanta get for what they did with their time? They just let him walk. And no other NBA team has even picked him up. So that clearly tells you what the Warriors, in many more kind respects, were trying to say over the last couple of years. They screwed up the timing of this, no doubt, but the league is not that interested in Jonathan. Therefore, what could you get for him? Bupkis. That's what you could get.
Well, you got...
But you got off of the money and off of the situation and calmed the screaming down that was going on.
And you got Kristaps Porzingis, who, when he plays, is still really good. He's not a star, but he's still a really good player. And so you're hoping that you can navigate October to February. And best case scenario, he's able to play, 30 of the first 40 or 30 of the first 45 games. And you get to the deadline and you can then flip him to somebody who is, willing to take on that semi-expiring contract and give you something else. You're kind of kicking the can down the road is what I think you're trying to do.
And they're doing it again.
Right.
Used to be strength in numbers, and now it's kicking the can down the road.
Well, I do think that the alternative was untenable to where you would wind up getting nothing for Kuminga. And the Kuminga thing was not a disaster, but it was ill-managed on both sides. Yeah. Kuminga's camp, the Warriors, they never got to the spot where it actually could work. Kuminga got hurt. Kerr didn't want to play him. He wanted more money than they wanted to give him. They finally gave him money, knowing full well they were going to deal him to try to get something else. And what they got back was not a healthy, good player for $30 million. And so now you're thinking, okay, how do I make chicken salad out of this chicken of the sea, so to speak?
It's an odd thing.
It's super odd. But I don't know. You're not.
I can't believe on August 20. I can't believe he's not on a team. How's he not on a team?
Well, I mean, you had the Warriors sign 2 people today, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like free agency is
no, he's not good. But these are minimum deals,
right?
Is that what he's taking? Are we doing minimum deal?
He's not getting $10 million. I mean,
there are reports out that he was already offered $10 million. He said no.
Right.
I don't know that that's true. But
I don't know that that's true either, but I do know this, and what I know is my own opinion, and my opinion is that he has the wrong agent. His agent has no idea what he's doing. That's my opinion, and I know that is what I know about my opinion. I don't know whether or not he's an actual good agent, but I look at what has happened.
That was funny.
And I know how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I look at the agent, and God bless him for doing an hour with Steiny and Guru from a gym. And, Kuminga's out there with the ha-ha against a couple of gardeners and a plumber. And, he's putting in work. And Aaron Turner, his agent, is, championing all of the work Jake Hayes putting in. And here we are in the end of August, and your guy is unsigned. You got sent to Atlanta. They didn't pick up the option. You either did or didn't get $10 million a year, and you poo-pooed it. And now you're out there.
Well, the only thing I would add to this conversation is that you and I do not know what deals were offered and who actually was the driving force behind the answer no. You can blame the agent all you want, but for all you know, the agent is sitting there going, dude, you should do this. And he's like, I'm not doing that.
Fair.
That could have happened. I have no clue. I don't know what was offered. I do know a couple of the teams that were sniffing around. And I think what has largely been reported is true. I think that Cleveland was a spot. I think that the Lakers were a spot. Maybe they still are. I don't know. But, what I don't know is exactly what was offered, and I don't know if the answer was no. I don't know who was the one who said no. You know what I mean? Like, in the end, the agent works for Jonathan.
True.
So even if he advised him to say no, Jonathan can be like, I said yes. And then you say yes.
Right.
So,
and it leads me.
I get where you're coming from.
It leads me a little bit to the Ayuk thing where, we talked to TJ Hushmanzada, who used to be his personal trainer, and I asked TJ myself, I said, how many people are left in the camp from back when you guys were all on his team? And he said, nobody.
Yeah.
They're all gone. And
0.0.
Right. So if the player decides he wants to do a certain thing, then the agent and the coach and the trainer and the this and the that, they can all say, well, we don't agree with that. And so we're out. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if that's the case with the Kuminga camp, but here we are in camp will open up here in about a month.
Yeah, it's getting here, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll just say this about the Golden State Warriors and the roster that they have created. I know that it doesn't excite a lot of people. I totally get that. What they've done with these deals today, and this is no surprise. You knew once they were down to 2 or 3 roster spots, it was going to just be sprinkle in some minimum contracts. I didn't know if it was going to be, just pull some people up from the G League. Turns out they've signed some people who actually have a little bit of NBA cachet. So that's nice. But what they have created is unbelievable, maximum, potentially unprecedented flexibility. Now, that doesn't matter unless they do something with it. And so that's sort of where my mind is as far as Warrior basketball. I would love to see what this flexibility that you are cradling like a baby right now, I would love to see what it gets you. What is it that you are going to do with this flexibility? And I think the first time that we're really going to be able to ask that question and demand some sort of an answer is February. Until then, it's just hang on for dear life, and hopefully they can surprise some people and win some basketball games, and maybe some people step forward that you didn't realize were going to step forward. Maybe Yaxel contributes right away, and try to win basketball games until Jimmy comes back, and or you arrive kind of at a trade deadline where you can start turning some chips in and make this flexibility be something that's tangible for the fans.
And is the Steph Day, is that coming up on the 29th?
29th.
Okay, that's on Saturday.
But it may be nothing.
Right, but I mean, that's when we can actually start to look at, that's when an extension could possibly happen.
Extension eligible on Saturday.
Saturday,
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that won't take away their optionality, because if he wants to be here, he's going to be here, and they have room for all of it.
Right, but that's why I use the word unprecedented. If they don't sign him to an extension, they will, in theory, be moving toward an offseason where they will have more cap space than any NBA team in the history of the league has ever had.